you can read things in the Bible, and not that that's not experiential, but you need to have lived experiences that help back up the new truths that are coming to you, because that's what solidifies it. But wouldn't it be nicer if it was just, boom, done?
Please just hold your breath. Every door looks better when you keep it closed. Keep your head down and don't watch your step. No point in even trying now, just let it go. Maybe they will write the same for me. Maybe this was really just a dream. Don't wanna take that risk and try to see a 9 to 5 will bring security, I'm sure, but I can guarantee you that's no way to live. Way to live. Promise that's no way to live. Way to live.
Hi, welcome back to another episode of Prodigal Peas in a Pod. I'm Brooke Ackerman.
Hi, I'm Denise Acosta.
And today we're going to sum up what we've been talking about the past several episodes, which are all leading to this idea of true identity. Because we've been talking about things like imposter syndrome and comparison and feeling like, what does humility actually mean? And all of these things are really pointing toward what does it mean to truly understand our true identity as God says, this is who you are. And so that's what we're diving into today. Doesn't that sound exciting?
So exciting.
I can tell you're so excited, Denise.
Okay, guys, if this is your first time joining us in a while, and maybe you missed the episodes before, just a quick recap on things that we've talked about. I think we started in episode 18. Yeah. So we talked about false humility, like we're shrinking back, hiding our gifts, and imposter syndrome. So we're doubting our calling, our worth, who we are, or who we think we are, rather. We talked about confidence and how that's rooted in God, the boldness coming from trust and not in ourselves and our own abilities. We also finished off with comparison being the thief of joy. So all of these are, like Brooke was saying, rooted in identity, what we think about ourselves versus what God thinks about us. And that's the truth that we need to live out of. But if you've been wrestling with any of those things that we've talked about, and you've gotten to a point where there are some things that maybe you need to address with God and work through, see what's going on there, well, then the next question could be, well, then who am I? And who does God say I am? And then how do I now suddenly walk out in that truth? And that can be hard.
That's the understatement of the century.
For a lot of reasons, because we want to sit here and be like, okay, well, I'll go ahead and cover this one topic with episode 18. I'll write it down. We'll get together with God, and then I'm good from there. And then we move on to 19, and then I write those down. We talk to God, and then, okay, now I got those. And so now we're here, and I'm ready. And then tomorrow morning, I'm going to live out this new truth. And that's not really how that works. I know for me, it's taken a long time. There's been a lot of moments where I sit down and talk with God about whatever came up in that moment, or things that I've been thinking about, questions that I've had about things. And, you know, well, I've always felt a certain way about myself, but now I'm finding out that that may be completely wrong. So then what am I supposed to do? All of that takes time to process, to understand where it came from, and then accepting that it's a lie. And now you have this truth that you now have to accept and anchor in. And we're not robots. It's not you just put in this new disk and here's your software upgrade, and now we're lovely and floating on our clouds of purpose. One of the things that is also difficult when you're in this and living out this new identity is you can have a group of people that you've been around for a long time, and now you're shifting who you are or who you believe that you are, and you're learning to walk in that new truth. And that can be really hard for some people to accept and understand. And then there are going to be people that are going to be super, super supportive. So that's the idea that we're going to be talking about today. I think as far as comparison is concerned, there's so many different ways to compare. And my normal practice is not to sit here and compare to someone else's life, for example, until something really bad will happen. Then it'll probably kick in at that point. But on a regular day-to-day, I'm not really, oh, well, this person's doing this, and I'm not there yet, and how do I get there? But some people are. Yeah. Some people, that is really common for them, which is one of the reasons I wanted us to talk about it. I think for me, pride has been my biggest thing that I didn't know the real depths of that was in me, in my family, rather. It's very deep for us all. And to see how it presents itself. Because for the longest time, I thought pride was, oh, you think you're better than everyone.
Yeah.
And I didn't think I was better than anyone. I didn't even think I was, and I was actually thinking about that today on my walk. At one point in my life, I thought I was the lowest priority of my own life. You're supposed to be the main character of your life. God's giving you this purpose to live out and carry and do and be triumphant in. And then I was out over here. Oh, no, you go ahead. It's okay. I'll just be completely depleted. And I'm supposed to get rewarded in heaven for it at some point. It was just so distorted.
Yeah, I was gonna say it gets really twisted. Because like, what was that actually accomplishing in the thought process of putting yourself that low?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because I understand in a very experiential way. So I'm asking that as I don't know what my thought process was, thinking that this was somehow better or good or healthy or what God would want.
Yeah. And I mean, my understanding of God now is different than then.
Yeah.
But even then, I would just try to rationalize it. But then there's other areas in my life that have manifested too, creating an aspect of my personality to basically beating to the punch. If you're rejecting first, then you can't be rejected.
Oh, yeah.
There's so many different things. And then for dating and getting cheated on, everybody would be like, oh my gosh, that's so awful. And we feel so sorry for you. But for most of those times was, no, I don't want anyone to know that I was dumb enough to get cheated on. You know what I mean? So it shows up in so many different ways. And so it took me a very long time to really understand the different ways that it had a hold on me and how it affected who I was. Comparison is probably not a very big one for me personally, but I have seen it with other people in my life. I've had friends in circles at times where it was constant. I mean, they're jumping into the group chat and it was, did you see this person? Oh my gosh, I can't believe this and that. Why are we even talking about it today? Why did that even come up? Is this what we're spending our energy on? And so there's deeper issues to that when that's something that becomes at the forefront of your conversations. There's something else that needs to be addressed there.
These are all ways of self-protecting. And this is all then creating a false identity, which until I heard somebody speak directly on that topic, I had no idea that existed, that I could have a false identity. And that's the idea of the fig leaf with Adam and Eve. And it's what we are presenting because we're trying to hide something about ourselves that we feel embarrassed about, or we feel shame, or we feel like it doesn't measure up, or whatever. And so instead, I'm going to manufacture this other version, and that's what I'll present. So it's so inauthentic, and it takes so much work to create that and uphold that rather than just be who I really am. But being who I really am because of negative experiences is frightening. And so I just keep going round and round and round in this circle of pride or comparison or imposter syndrome or whatever. And I've now added layers of fig leaves to protect even further, because if you rip that one away, then hey, there's 10 more. So I can still be who I am pretending to be, because I think somehow that's going to be more pleasing to whomever.
And that's the thing. We look at it now, we're like, why was I even doing that? You know, and in those times, that's important to you. There's a real person there why did their opinion even matter? The way, are they paying your bills? What are they doing? That they have this decision-making power in your life. What's going on there? We just get sucked into it. We just buy into it. Someone told us one day and we believed it. And they probably aren't even thinking about it anymore. They don't even remember what they told us that one time. And here we are. We've now created this whole identity because of it since. All because of this one thing. And that person has not lost an ounce of sleep over us.
Yeah.
That's rough. That's rough.
It's an exhausting way to exist.
It is exhausting. I think the process of even learning those new truths, because there are some people, I don't know them, but I imagine there's some, who will go through this process of identifying where things could be wrong, what lies there could have been. And now you have this list of new truth. And I feel like there has to be some people that just kind of run to this, yay, this is my new truth and this is what I want to live out of, and I'm going to put on this jacket now and this is what we're wearing every single day. Whereas for me, it would take time. Okay, I'm not saying that's wrong, but I need some time to sit with that. I need some time to be comfortable with that when I put it on. And I think some of that came from just being so skeptical of, well, that's really nice stuff. I wasn't used to a whole lot of niceness being attributed to my person. Like, people would say it and I'm like, oh, they're just being nice. But for me to actually believe it. And so a lot of these things I had to sit with and be like, okay, well, I needed more than just, well, God said it once in the Bible. I needed more than that. I needed to experience it to some degree. I needed some kind of tangible way that I could wrap my mind around, okay, this is what we're doing and this is true. So I just wasted that many years of my life. And that was my little crisis too, crossing over to that, because I'm like, oh my gosh. And so now we have this whole new thing. This whole new thing is very nice. For me, and I imagine others, it takes time. I had to experience a lot of those things, and I'm still learning different things. Like we've said it before, there's always more with God. I've already had some conversations about the stuff that we've talked about in the last few episodes, but that doesn't mean that 10 years from now, something else from that same category may not still pop up, and then we start addressing that. So there's layers to it.
And I like that you said you had to experience it and it took time, because that is how change occurs. For example, for a very long time in my life, I believed that I was selfish. People said that to me. There were experiences that reinforced it. And so I would say I'm selfish. It's an identity statement. It's not just behavior. And once I started learning what it was like to actually have a relationship with God and that he could communicate with me and reset the things that I believed that weren't true, hi, John.
Hi, John.
He would say, you're not selfish. And that was really kind and it was really helpful. But somebody saying that to me wasn't enough to change the belief. I needed to have experiences where I started to see it for myself, realize, oh, that is not selfish of me to want XYZ or to do whatever, the things that I was told were selfish behaviors or selfish choices. But I needed to do that thing, get comfortable with, no, this isn't selfish. Let that sink in, experience another thing. Like it does take time, and you can read things in the Bible, and not that that's not experiential, but you need to have lived experiences that help back up the new truths that are coming to you, because that's what solidifies it. And so, yeah, that takes time, because to experience life takes time. But wouldn't it be nicer if it was just boom, done?
I know.
Well, I mean, I think it would be nice, but maybe not, because it seems like if that's the way it works, that it takes time and experience, then that's probably the better way, because God knows better than I do how things should go. So I think it would be nicer if it was quick, but obviously there's a reason that it's not.
Something about it's the journey that's important, not so much the destination. But also, we didn't wake up one day and get to all these beliefs that we eventually got to. We got to it because of the experiences that we had and stuff that we ended up believing. So in the same way, we are, what is it? Not reworking, but
redefining.
Yeah, that's a good one. Redefining who we are. Who are we? There was a situation where I was having trouble forgiving someone very close to me, and you have to forgive 77 times 7, completion. It was somebody that you can't just block out of your life. There are sometimes, you can step away from friendships or relationships, and then there are some that are in your life that they're going to be in your life whether you want them to or not. And this was one of those. And so now I'm working through this space with God, and we're readdressing this identity where a lot of the lies came from this particular source. And so it was really hard for me to make that connection. And so I was avoiding conversations and relationship as much as I could. While that was good for me on a day-to-day, long-term basis, We got to a point where some kind of a conversation was going to have to happen, and it was going to be for a length of time. And I had to get used to the idea that something was going to have to happen. And I remember talking to my friend about it, and I didn't want to engage again because of just how hurtful it was. And I know that there, at least in my opinion, wasn't significant change enough to feel like I was in a safe position to either work on a relationship, a healthy one, or anything like that. And so I was very hesitant to step in. And she shifted it because I was like, what if they do it again? Everything feels so good now with what I'm working towards and what I believe. And then they're going to say the one thing and I'm going to be all mad again. And I'm going to be so hurt again. And it's going to put me in this space that I don't want to be in anymore. It comes down to if I forgive them again this time and they hurt me again. And she was like, well, you have God. And if you had said that to me 15 years ago, I may have just walked away from you. Like, what does that even mean? My relationship with God and my connection with God is very different now, to where that shifted a lot for me because, okay, it doesn't mean that God is going to necessarily keep me from ever getting hurt from this person ever again. It is very true that I could be getting hurt again, engaging in this relationship again. But at the same time, in the past, I didn't turn to God in any of those moments. I wasn't going to him for comfort. I wasn't resting in him in my feelings. And now I do. So even if getting into that relationship again or engaging in those conversations would lead to some kind of hurt, I have God and we can talk through that. And for as long as I'm hurt, I can work through that with God. And if we need to address new things or whatever that conversation has to look like, but I'm not doing that alone. And that has shifted so many things for me, especially for obedience, because sometimes, again, I have said pride is a huge thing. It has been a huge thing for me, and it's looked different in many areas, but you almost don't want to be obedient because, well, then that's just going to show them this, or they're going to think I'm weak because of this, or now they're going to think I'm dumb that they can treat me like that, and no one's going to treat me like that. No one's going to have the image of me where I'm somebody that gets to be walked all over. And so you almost don't want to sit there and do the forgiveness because you're so wrapped up in those things, the pride, the false humility, comparison, whatever it is for you. And so having that shift in how I look at it, but you have God, it changes a lot because that voice is the one that matters. That relationship is the one that matters. That's the one I have to come face to face with. Just looking at it that way has shifted a lot for me. And it helps in those moments where I do get caught up in stuff. Like somebody irritates me or one of those same things is popping back up again. The whole I have God now shifts a lot of my perspective, and I'm more inclined to be obedience. And if you know me, you know that submitting to authority is challenging for me. I've come a long way, you guys.
I'm gonna say it sounds like it was difficult and it's getting easier.
Yeah. It is getting easier.
Yeah. That's another thing about knowing who God says you are, that then you can go back into situations where, what if this person hurts me again, is a very real thing. It is valid. And if it's somebody who is abusive, you do not have to put yourself back into connection with them. You can still forgive somebody and not reconcile with them.
Yeah.
But if it is somebody that you clash, you have difference of opinions, it's not a situation where it's abusive, but knowing who God says you are, actually believing it at your core, you can go into situations with someone like that. You can enter into conversations or be in relationship with somebody, and what they say about you doesn't stick. It's not like Velcro anymore. It's more like Teflon, where it hits and you feel it, but then it just sort of slides off. Whereas if you don't have a sense of who God says you are, that is a need that we have. It's in every one of us to know what is really true about me. And so if we don't get that from God, then we are going to absorb it from other people, situations, media, society. There are so many really good things about knowing your identity as God says, but it makes it a lot easier to go into any circumstance, any situation. And it's not that you won't be affected by other people or different things going on in life, but it's not going to be the thing that defines you because you already have that thing defined. And you'll still be affected, and there will still be painful moments, and there will still be times that you're sad, and still be times that you're confused about things. But like you said, there's this undercurrent of something steady, something that you know is absolutely true. And so then you can fall back to that and then go, okay, remind me again who you say I am. Remind me again, God, what you say is true. And then that's the lens that you look at that person through, or that situation, or the life circumstances. And it doesn't.
The G shades.
Oh, yes, Mike Haynes. It's not, other people, situations, circumstances, whatever. That's not the most defining thing about you, because you know what God says is true.
You can celebrate your successes, your achievements, all of that without having to put anyone else down. And I don't know who needs to hear that, but...
One, why is that such revolutionary thought? Where did it come from to begin with, that to celebrate something that I'm doing well, or this good thing in my life? I don't understand, where did it come from that it has to be a comparison? I can't celebrate the good thing in that person's life because then somehow that diminishes something in my life. No, it doesn't.
It doesn't.
There's room for everyone. It makes me think of a line from Hamilton when Aaron Burr says, the world is wide enough for Hamilton and me. There is enough space for you to do your thing really well, and for me to be, hey, that's really great. And for me to do my thing really well, and me to say about myself, hey, that's really great. I don't have to diminish me so that you're better, or vice versa. And I don't know why that's the first thought. And then it's, oh no, we don't have to do that, is the second thought. Why? Where did that original...
I think it's a learned thing. Somebody, you get, I don't know if it's someone tells you or gives you the example and you kind of end up taking that up, or I think a lot of it, well, I'm pretty sure it's all rooted in fear. You want to make sure that people know your value, so you have to say it, or they won't know. I feel that's kind of where that comes from. If you have to say you're a nice guy, you may not be as nice as you think you are. If you have to say it, if you have the whole alpha thing, if you have to tell someone you're an alpha, I'm like, about that. So I think a lot of that kind of stuff comes from that. There's that fear. There's an aggression that can come up where you end up being that way, or you make statements like that. And it's just rooted from a very scared, fearful child. That's what I envision in my head when I hear that kind of stuff. It used to really upset me when I would hear those kinds of things, but I try to look at things differently as often as I can. Don't always make the mark, but but to kind of see where that could be coming from. And I don't know, I think that that's it. And what an opportunity if that landed, to consider, why do I feel the need to put someone else down? You can just celebrate your own stuff. You can just be like, oh, I got this today, or, somebody praised me for this, and you don't have to be like, and then this other person though, oh, leave them alone. They don't even need to be there. Yeah.
It feels like it's maybe part of that distortion of humility too, is that if you celebrate your own thing, then somehow you might be seen as arrogant, but that still doesn't make any sense. Why, if I say a good thing about me, then I have to put somebody else down too? Because it all feels like subtle distortions of we're almost hitting the mark, but if we're not hitting the mark exactly, it doesn't matter if we're a centimeter off or 5 miles off, we're still off. And getting back to what does God say is true about me, but also one of the things that's been really helpful for me when I've found myself falling into comparison or feeling like I can't talk about good things in my life, and instead I'm going into the vein of putting somebody else down, is to ask God to show me that person the way that he sees them, or to show me their good thing that's happening the way that he sees it. And man, does that change things, because that person is his kid too.
Yeah.
And he loves them and is really proud of them for whatever it is that they're doing. And he designed them to do the thing that they're doing, just like he designed me to do the thing that I'm doing. And so there really is no competition. There is no need for comparison, because I'm not that person and they're not me. And so there's room for all of the things that we're all doing. So many distortions, so many lies. It's really frustrating how much we have to dig through all that stuff.
It is a lot to dig through, and it's a process. I emphasize that it's a process because, you know, we want to be fixed. Okay, I know things are wrong. Now fix me. Come on, God, fix me and tell me who I am. And it's going to be something that we do forever, you guys, until we meet him again, because then we're supposed to be like good by then. We'll have our new bodies and we'll be living in that glowy new truth, and it'll be a little bit different. But while we live in this broken world and these broken bodies and all the things that come with it, we need to also be aware that these things are probably still going to be coming up. We're going to be learning new things and hopefully not accepting any other new lies, but life is life, and we have got to work through that with us. So some of the questions I had for us were, where have I been shrinking back under false humility? That's the whole thing with pride. That was episode 18. If you do need to go back and want to listen to that. So taking an inventory of ourselves and try to identify those things. The next one, where have I believed imposter lies instead of God's truth? So again, we want to identify these things and replace them with God's truth. I think I mentioned in that episode, or maybe you did, but I know we both talked about it before, where you make a list and on the left side you would write the lies that you're believing, and on the right side you replace it with the actual scripture truth that God has to say about it. Is a good place to start. Where am I acting boldly in my own strength rather than trusting him? So that's going into the whole, we're engaging in things that we already know that we're comfortable doing and confident in our skills, versus stepping into something God is calling us to when we feel like we don't have those skills, but we're stepping in because we trust God, not because of our skills. Where does comparison steal my contentment or joy? Everywhere. Let me just answer that for you. Yeah. So we've talked about comparison being the thief of joy, and that was episode 21. So basically episodes 18 through 21 is what we are attempting to wrap up today and touch more on living it out.
The lies that I've believed, that starting there is just, it's really simple to do, and it's really, really helpful to start with. What is a lie that I am believing? There are times that's my first question to God is, what's a lie I'm believing today? And he and I will dig through whatever recently has come up. Sometimes it's a repetition of something that's been in there since who knows when, or a new thing is landing on an old thing, but it's just a really easy way to start clearing out the junk and being able to live from what he says is true instead. So getting rid of the lies is a really good first step, and then asking God, or just even reflecting for yourself, if my life looked the way it could, knowing that this is who God says that I am, this is what he says is true about me, then how would I walk into this conversation differently? How would I interact with that person differently? How would my life be different if I really did believe what God says is true about me? And another way to think about that, if the idea of hearing from God, or maybe you don't have a relationship with him, but if I had nothing to lose, if I wasn't afraid of what this person would think of me, if others' opinions didn't really make any difference, how would I interact with this person? What choices would I make? That's just another way of getting into what is really true about me, and what's the fig leaf? What am I presenting that may not be true because I'm trying to cover up something that I believe to be true that is actually a lie. But some other ways that you can start doing practical things is with humility, and really knowing what humility is versus arrogance. Again, if it helps to go back and listen to the previous episodes, do that, because we go way more in depth than we're doing now. But to think about one thing where you have been downplaying who you are or what you bring to the table, one way that you've been holding back, and instead take a step forward, take a step into the area that you've been feeling uncomfortable about. And we don't have to go 180 degrees different, because if we've been holding something back about ourselves for so long, even the tiniest step forward is going to feel jarring. It's going to feel really risky, and that's okay. You don't have to change everything about your life in one day for it to start making a difference. So Start small, do it well, add to it. It's a much kinder way to live, kinder to yourself way to handle that. As far as really what your identity is, again, if it feels like you all talk about this conversational relationship with God and I just don't think I'm there yet, or I don't know if I ever am going to be there, and that's okay. If that's something that you want, talk to us. We love talking about that. You can send us an email, prodigalpeas@gmail.com. Or, you know what? God has already spoken a lot and it's been recorded in the Bible. And so you can look up, you can use any of the tools that we've mentioned in previous episodes. There's all kinds of ways to look up topically, but you can also just start finding scripture about what God says is true about his kids and write those down. And again, I know I've talked about, I love to journal. And if you're not a journaler, it's okay. But writing things down really does help.
Use a notes app, you guys. Come on. Just, if you want to see change, gotta do a little work.
Yeah, you can't keep doing the same thing you've been doing expecting it to change. That just doesn't make sense. That's not logical. As far as confidence goes, again, just take a step into something that you've wanted to do, but it feels a little bit scary, and you don't have to go 180 degrees. Just try a new thing. Talk to that person that you feel a little nervous about talking to. It doesn't have to be a full-blown whole 3-hour conversation. It can just be introduce yourself to the person or say hi or whatever the scary thing is. Take a step toward it. It's like that whole, you got to face your fears. Like if you're afraid of spiders, go into a room full of spiders. No, thank you. There's got to be a better way.
Don't like that.
No, me either. So again, find ways where you're kind to yourself. This doesn't have to be 180 degree switch, because that's usually not very kind to yourself. We said writing down the lies, divide your piece of paper into 2 columns, writing down the lies and then writing out the truths on the other side, whether it's through the Bible, through conversation with God. Ask the people in your life who you know are trustworthy. Hey, this is something that I believe to be true about myself. Do you see that? Because that's a scary question, because they might say, yeah, there is some element to that. And you got to be prepared for that. And in that conversation, truth will come out of that, and they'll say, but this is really who I know you to be. This is a behavior that you're showing because of fear or a wound or whatever. But you can also ask the people in your life who you know are in your corner and who you trust, because sometimes having somebody reflect back to us who we are, who they see us to be, is immensely helpful. But also, you have to understand that if you're going to be that vulnerable, which is great, that you might not hear all wonderful things, but if they are a trustworthy person, they are saying hard things to you for a reason, and you can work through that together. And that's another way of dealing with the lies that you're believing about yourself, even though they're saying it to you. Again, if they are a trustworthy person and they are in your corner, they can help you get rid of the stuff that isn't true to then get down to what is actually true about you. One last thing I'll mention is, again, I like to journal. So if you're a journaler, you can write this down. And if not, it can just be a self-reflection kind of thing. And then when you wake up the next morning, you can either journal again or reflect. But take a moment in the evening before bedtime, whatever works best for you, to reflect back on the day and take note of some things that, not so much that you wish you had done differently or better in the sense of achievement or accomplishment, but trying to dig through what am I believing is true about myself versus what is actually true. And so if you take some time to look back at some of the things throughout the day that you could adjust the next day, think of it that way. Because again, that's a kinder way of thinking about it. I'm not saying sit there before you go to bed and beat yourself up for the things that you wish you had done differently. No, that's not how God would talk to us. That's not how he treats us. So be kind to yourself, and you don't have to make a whole list of 10 things. Pick one thing in the areas that we've talked about of confidence, humility, pride, arrogance, imposter syndrome, all of those things where when I was talking to that person, I felt a little uncomfortable. And so I presented a fig leaf rather than my real self. And so the next time that I feel a little bit uncomfortable, I'm going to remember I don't have to present in a different way. I can just be me. And then there's that lived experience of realizing when you are your authentic self, people will respond well to you. And then that makes it more comfortable for the next time that you're in one of those situations. That's a lot of stuff. So hopefully You wrote that down.
You mentioned a few times there about being kind to yourself. And if you guys have any voice in your head, like I used to have for a good portion of my life, where being kind to yourself is just not something that you're even supposed to be doing, that is not God. That's not what God wants for you. That's not how you need to talk to yourself. He doesn't talk to us like that. I don't know how else to say other than it's not God. And it's not going to help our growth. It's not going to help us get to a better understanding. It's not effective. So it's important, you guys, to be kind to yourself.
Yeah, because I know that there's a lot of people who think, well, but it's motivating. It's how I keep myself on track. You really can't hate yourself to a better place. You can't hate yourself and think that there's going to be healing that comes of it. And you might think, well, I don't hate myself. I'm just really hard on myself. Well, it's a form of not liking yourself because, again, think about how God talks to us. Think about how he treats us. We are reflections of him. And so if he wouldn't talk to me that way, why would I talk to me that way? And that's actually one of the things God said to me one time. He said, I don't let anybody talk to my kid that way, not even you, about the way that I was talking to myself. There were definitely some tears in that conversation, but it was the wake-up moment that I needed to realize, because I also had that belief or that voice inside me of I was very unkind to myself. And I realized that that was contributing to the problem. And when God brought my attention to it, I started to shift. And it is a much nicer way to live. And healing can actually occur and change can actually take place when I am kind to myself.
And that includes things that we say out loud about ourselves, guys. I know the inner monologue is far worse than what we say out loud, and I wish we had Polly here to explain the science behind this. We'll
bring her back on for another episode.
So she can clear this up for us. When you're saying stuff out loud, I'm so stupid, your body will internalize that and process that as a truth. Even though you're just saying it just to say it and you're so used to talking about yourself that way, but your nervous system just starts, okay, this is what we're doing. I am stupid. And it starts operating off of that.
Yeah.
Don't set yourselves up for that, you guys. Again, God doesn't talk to us like that. Don't talk to yourself like that. Certainly not out loud. And the far worse things that are in inner monologues, get rid of that. Whatever you got to do. Let's stop.
Hey, I don't know if you all know this, but Denise here has a digital ministry called Misfit of Creation. And she has an Etsy site. And there's probably something on your Etsy site.
Yes, there's a lot of things, and you probably hear it at the end of each episode. But in all this that we've been talking about in the last few weeks, I did put together a study on identity, something that will help guide you through that process and those conversations with God. So if you are looking to check that out, be sure to check out the Etsy shop. It is misfitofcreation.etsy.com.
Yay.
Yeah, what you got?
Yeah, talking about identity and the things that distort our identity is foundational to my coaching practice. So if that's something that you want to explore further in a one-on-one setting, absolutely contact me. You can check out my website. It's blueprintheartandmind.com. And you can schedule an appointment there. You can read. I have lots of blog posts, and several of them are on these topics that we've been talking about today, and especially identity, because it's so key to really knowing who God is, who he says we are. So you can check out any of that too.
Yay! All right, guys. So securing our identity in Christ is something that we need to be intentional about, not passive. We're just going to delay our progress, and we want to live in that truth sooner than later so that we can start carrying out our calling that God has put on our hearts. So definitely encourage you to do that. Small steps at a time is just fine, you guys.
So thanks for tuning in again. And we are Prodigal Peas in a Pod, and we'll see you next week.
Okay, bye.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Prodigal Peas in a Pod. Not sure how you found us today, but be sure to like, subscribe, and follow so you don't miss out on any other episodes. And you can find us on most podcast platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and Amazon Music.
If anything we said today resonated or got you thinking deeper, share it with a friend, leave a comment, or shoot us an email over at prodigalpeas@gmail.com. If you didn't know, this podcast is a merge of both of our brands. I am Misfit of Creation, a soul food ministry. You can find me on Instagram, on Facebook, and on YouTube. I also have an Etsy shop where you can find downloadable tools that will help you grow in your walk with God. And that is misfitofcreation.etsy.com. And if you're looking to be a monthly supporter, you can also find me on Patreon.
My mental and emotional health coaching practice is Blueprint Heart and Mind Coaching, and you can find me at blueprintheartandmind.com, where I have a blog, and you can also make an appointment with me. And you can find me on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. We'll see you next week.
Okay, bye.
I think I get it now. I need to be myself because a copycat can only do so well. In love with everything that makes me who I am. Don't need a backup plan. I hope they understand that I'm doing better today. I got me a mission that got some fruition. You down to stay out the way. Can't seek validation from people who hating. I got my mentality straight. Shout out to God, I've been keeping the first. He been working and paving the way. And now I can guarantee you that's the way to live. Way to live. Promise that's the way to live. Way to live. Promise that's the way to live.
Autobots, roll out. Let's bring them all together. And let's roll out in our new identity. Oh, we should have closed with that. That's too bad. Can you guys remember that?
I can just edit that and put it at the end.
That would be so fun. Autobots, roll out in your new identity.